So back to the Battle of Nicopolis from the game Crusades 2. Start of the 5th turn, the 11:30 in the morning turn. We start with the orders phase. So from the Crusader perspective, the Ottoman irregular skirmish units here have been a real nuisance. But going from right to left along the Crusader line, Burgrave and his Transylvanians have an advance order. They will continue to advance before they transition to the attack. It's Burgrave right there. Jean Pur and his French knights are just going to continue on the attack. The overall army leader, Sigismund, he'll go ahead and stick in reserve for another turn and instead try to Mercia and his Wallachians are going to try to change from their reserve order to an advance order again. Again, we have to test against Mercia's command rating, which again is a 4, as you can see. Command rating of 4. Just missed it. Rolled a 5. Just missed it. So, delayed again. So they probably will not be moving much, if at all. Maybe they'll tighten up their lines a bit, but other than that, they're not advancing. The Ottomans, Bayezid will stick with his stand order for now, and the Prince of Serbia will stick with his reserve order for at least one more turn. So now we go to the first player. That's the Ottomans. The first player movement phase. So first step of the movement phase, check for out of command. There is nothing out of command. Skirmish units are never out of command. His units are still within command span, and the Serbs are obviously still consolidated. So no one's out of command. So then we go to movement. What we can do, 1, 2, 3. So I'm checking this routed unit here. I'm checking to see if he's within command span of a leader for later rallying, and he is. Bayezid has a command span of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So he's just inside the command span of Bayezid. That means that he will be able to rally when we get to that point in the turn. In the center here, skirmish unit cannot move adjacent, cannot move into the, it's not adjacent, cannot move into the zone of control of a combat unit. Interesting. So just a slight difference. Out of command units may not move adjacent to an enemy combat unit, period. Whereas skirmish units may not enter an enemy combat unit zone of control. Alright, so he stays put there. These facing changes don't count. Just for visual appeal again. So he can move here. He's moving adjacent to Jean Pur, but not in the zone of control. Zone of control is flanks and 2 frontal hexes, not the 2 rear hexes. Yeah, so he'll move here. Man. Moves over here. All right. So movement. Okay, so the unit back here. Can move back 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's dismounted, so he moves 4. And Serbs will stay put with no movement yet. Right, so that was the first player or Ottoman movement. Now go to the first player or Ottoman combat phase. Remember retreats before combat. The first option to retreat before combat. He cannot because that's skirmisher adjacent to skirmisher. He could have just moved away in his movement phase. Retreat before combat. So here's an example. Here is a actually I don't. So here we have a skirmish unit in the command or in the zone of control of the French knights here, but if he successfully retreats before combat, then no, it doesn't say anything about advancing. So the Asab dismounted bow unit will try to retreat away from the enemy cavalry, so he has to roll 8, 9, or 10. He rolls a 7, just missed it. So that's that. Alright, I think that's all the retreat before combat. Now we go to the fire phase. Defensive fire first, that's the Crusaders. So we do have some. Here, the bowmen, 1 adjacent, +1 for range is 8, +1 for range is 9. 9. So 9 on the bow column is a 1-step loss. So 1-step loss is, the Asab is a 1-step unit. So he's eliminated. So that was some good bow work by those Transylvanians. No more ranged fire over here. No, he doesn't have a target anymore. He routed. The unit routed away. So that's all the defensive fire. Now we go to offensive fire, which is Ottoman fire. We still have quite a bit here. So the Asab dismounted bowman is going to fire into the out of command French knights there. 2 hexes away is no range modifier, 10, but I do subtract 1 for these being Crusader heavy cavalry. So the 10 goes to a 9, which is still a 9 on the bow column is still a 1-step. Still a 1-step hit. Not bad at all. Takes a step hit, and because he takes a step hit, he has to check morale as well. So his new morale is 7, -1 for the 1-step loss counter is 6, and he fails his morale check. He rolls an 8, which is too high. So what happens because he's out of command? Just double check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Effects of being out of command: may not move adjacent to enemy combat unit. If an enemy zone of control, may not move. Receive no die roll modifiers for command shits during melee. If they move, they must move closer to their leader. And charging heavy cavalry, flip to the non-charging side. So it looks like there isn't anything special. But also, there is no reason to keep the out of command marker. So I'll just flip the marker over to the routed side, because now his state is just plain routed. So I guess he routes. I always have to. So this is a failed morale check. So a failed morale check means 1 to 3. 1 to 3 hexes owning player's choice. Well, he's still going to be out of command because he's not going to be able to get closer to his. And that's interesting. When you're doing retreats, so these Zocs don't matter of all these skirmish units. These Zocs don't matter, but the Janissaries do. Oh, geez, I'm thinking too much about it, aren't I? It's not that big a deal, so I guess we'll just route two hexes away in that direction. So pick up our firing again. Misses. Oh, over here. Okay, firing at Jean-Pierre and his heavy cavalry there. This is Saab unit. Fired at 2 hexes away. Bow unit 2 hexes away is no range modifier. Subtract 1 for the heavy cavalry. 9, which on the bow column is again 1 step loss. 1 step loss. Now it's to check morale. So it's 8. Minus 1 for the 1 step loss counter is 7. Okay, 7. He rolls a 1. Subtract 1 for the leader is 0. Way under current morale of 7. So I don't think, just taking a step loss, I don't think he loses his charge status. Now, so that was this Assab unit. These 2 units are going to fire into his rear, the rear of the unit. Just getting morale checks will not matter, so they're trying to get, what they're doing is they're trying to get a step loss, which they need to get. Mounted bow. Okay, they can't get anything better than a morale check. And the stack's already passed a morale check for this phase, so that's it. And that is it for Ottoman offensive ranged combat. Now we go to Ottoman melees. None of these skirmishers are going to melee. So there is no Ottoman melee. Now we go to the rally phase. There are yes, there is. This one, we talked about it too. So he is within command range of Bayezid here, so he can roll to pass a morale check. Right away, we take the die roll, which is a 2, which is good. You want low. Add 1 for being routed is 3, and 3 is easily equal to or less than the current morale of 6 there on the center right. So he rallies in place. That is all the Ottoman rallies. Okay, this is we are on turn 5, and so what it says is, starting with game turn 5, the second player, that would be the Crusaders, roll to check for victory. But we know we don't have to roll because the Turkish losses are definitely not 58 or more. What they are right now is, to start with, we have 2 Ottoman irregular skirmish units for a total of 4. 2 combat power plus 2 combat power. Plus some... No, there aren't even any step losses to account for on the board. So really, it really is just 4 points right now. So nowhere near checking for victory. Now we go on to the second player movement phase, or the Crusaders. Now we check to make sure everybody's in command span. They're all within command span. They're still in command span. Okay, here, and they're in command span, but let's double check Pierre's units. He is definitely still out of command. Oh, man, This is I should have already discussed this because this is a part of the rules that I don't think I've used yet. Let's take a look at this out of command unit. Clearly out of command from his leader. 1, 2, 3, 4. Clearly way outside the command span of Jean-Pierre. However, overall leaders in command span. Combat units may trace command from an overall leader, that's Sigismund, even if not assigned to him. When tracing to an overall leader with no command chit, he has a command, he has a reserve unit. So what happens? What happens? If the overall leader has a command chit, okay, he has a reserve chit. If the overall leader has a command chit, any unit tracing command to him must abide by that command chit. Okay, I've been completely missing this, so he's not out of command. We can take that off him, but he follows the reserve command of Sigismund. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he's within command span of Sigismund. Sigismund has a reserve order, so he's dancer, and I guess he follows he has to follow the reserve order, so he will not be getting closer to enemy combat units. Okay, all right, we'll remember that. Yeah. Now let's go back to Jean-Pierre's formation here. So obviously he's good there. He can trace 1, 2, 3. Again, these skirmish units are not, they're Zocs. No, they don't have Zocs. Only the hexes they occupy are being blocked for command span. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So these guys are clearly out. Well, he's routed, doesn't matter, but the other stack here is clearly out of command. And that's that. So that's the command check step of the Crusader movement phase. Now we do movement. Said we'll close up the lines here. Garcia, we'll go 0, 1, 2, and we'll go and 3. All right, leave them there. They're ready to try again next turn to change their reserve orders to advance, or maybe they just go. I don't know, advance or attack, one or the other. Movement here. At least we can get. So again, if this out of command unit moves, they must move within the command span of their leader or as close to this as possible. Well, what he can do is he can simply move 2 forward again. Which means that he'll be in command span by extension. Might as well. No, I know why he's facing that. He's facing the Janissaries because he's concerned about them charging him in the flank if he turns around to melee the mounted bow skirmish unit. That's an interesting way to work together. Okay, now we have the advanced command. The reserve command, Sigismund and his reserve command aren't going to do any movement except actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So actually that unit will change phase 0, 1, and 2 so that he's out of, pull back because of the reserve order that they're following. And now we'll go over here to Burgrave. They have the advance order, so they have to close the distance at least 1 hex to enemy combat units. Enemy combat unit, nearest enemy combat unit. Well, certainly they can advance that way and that way. and that way, and like that. Alright, so that is the Crusader movement. Now we go to the Crusader combat phase. Start with retreats before combat. Retreat before combat. Looking here. It's Crusader combat. Crusader combat. Oh. He will try to pull back. And he rolls a 1. He's not able to. He needed 8, 9, or 10. Alright, that's it for retreats before combat. Okay, defensive fire, so that's the Ottomans. The Assab unit is actually going to fire at the opposing dismounted bow unit there. 2 ways, no range modifier, so it's just flat. It was a 7, which is a morale check on the Transylvanians there, and they passed. Their morale check with a 3, their morale is 6. 6 right there. Here, fire at the out of command unit there. Ooh, he rolled a 10. So he is, range is no modifier, but -1 for Crusader heavy cavalry. Ooh. So 9, that is still a step loss against these Crusader Knights. So we take that 1-step loss unit, we flip it over to 2-step losses and subtract 2 from all of his combat values. So his morale is now a pretty sad 4. Yeah, I completely messed that up. All along, that wasn't even lost underneath markers. That was a Ottoman mounted bow skirmish unit all along. I will put him back to where he was. Yeah. Never mind. Would have been a nice shot though. Alright, where am I? I'll just pick up offensive fire again. Alright, try this again. Well, that men-at-arms unit, was it infantry or men-at-arms? That is men-at-arms. No, it's infantry. Wow, that is really a fine distinction. Alright, so that's infantry. No ranged fire capability. Alright, here, mounted bows. Oh, there we go. That would have been the shot, but missed. Missed. Ooh, alright, got a 10 here. Don't fire at your own guy. Alright. Alright, so mounted bow, rolled a 10, firing at the infantry over here, 2 hexes away. So mounted bow, 2 hexes away is -1 for range. So 9, but no other modifier. So there's -1 for 2 hex range, so it's 9 on the mounted bow. Column is a morale check. And they pass though. The Transylvanian infantry has a morale of 6, they roll a 3. So we pick up our fire again. Misses. Let's see if this hits. So over here, got this Assab dismounted bow unit firing at Jean-Pierre here. I think it's only, yeah, it's only -1 for the Crusader heavy cavalry. Okay, 6. Okay, just missed it. Pick up bow units behind, and oh, got an 8. 7. Missed it again. Missed it by 1 again. Alright. That is all the defensive fire. I was supposed to be doing offensive fire, wasn't I? Well, yeah. Melee. Alright. Are these the wrong... Oh, I put the wrong marker on that. I'll claim that the reason for why I missed it. Alright, so what I'm talking about here is when I missed the Ottoman mounted bow unit there and mistook it for a Crusader unit, I had the Crusader out of command marker on it and not the Ottoman out of command marker on it. That would have at least made it easier to catch my mistake. Alright, so we do have melee. We have this melee and this melee. This melee here. Alright, that's okay. So I go back to number 1 here. The Transylvanian infantry commits. Ooh, when they stall, they roll a 9. It's over. They wanted to see if they could live another day, and they just petered out. Alright. Alright, so they make it. They're in. Now we have another retreat before combat opportunity. This is a skirmish unit being attacked by a cavalry unit. Can retreat on 8, 9, or 10. Rolls a 9. Rolls a 9. So he can retreat. 1 to 3 hexes. So he will, well, he can't retreat into this one because there's the enemy Zoc. Where'd this guy come from? I think I have officially botched this entire battle. Looks great. It's starting to get fun. Well, I'll just set him aside. I'll finish this turn, and I'll probably fold this game. Embarrassing. Alright. Yeah, so he retreats before combat anyways. Must advance. Attacker must advance into the vacated hex as a result of that. Those were the 2 melees. I'll say it looks great. Nice roomy hexes to play with. I was having such a bad time picking up these counters this morning with the tweezers that it was nice that I could just switch to fat fingers. Was fun. Looks great. You do have to watch these. Unit pictures, because here's a Transylvanian infantry, and you get something. Oh, maybe you just look early on and figure out that you don't have any. So there are no. Now I see that there are no men-at-arms. There are no men-at-arms in this battle, but what I was getting at was that, so that's an infantry unit, and you can see with, come on, there we go, it will, yep, you can see the little figure there. So he's holding up a shield, and he's holding up, in this case, a sword. The figure for men-at-arms looks almost identical, except that he's holding up a kind of battle axe. So you'd want to look very, very closely, because men-at-arms are going to have obviously a different row on the unit type table, and men-at-arms also have a modifier on the fire table. So you would want to watch that. But yeah, in this game, I guess I'm glancing over all these foot units, and it looks to me like they're all holding swords, not axes. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm talking about in the black and white rules. That's what I mean there. See the come on, there we go. See? The infantry on the left holding up a sword is very, very, very close to the men-at-arms on the right, which seems to be holding up again a battle axe. So you'd want to watch for those distinctions. Yeah. I also think that Nicopolis was turning out to be an interesting battle. Should probably try to play this again sometime in the future. There are clearly those rules gaps. The rules are so terse that you really have to pay very close attention to what's written, what's not written, and unfortunately even what may be implied in some cases. Although you can't just go, you also can't just go on, figuring out every implication imaginable. Yeah. Nicopolis, Crusades 2. Nice game. But too many little errors. I was having trouble keeping track of my sequence of play. I mean, I had the sequence of play down. I thought I had it down cold, and then it turns out again that by one reading of the rules, it looks like all units can try to retreat before combat at the start of a combat phase. So that did throw me off, because again, I think that adds an entire step right here that is not listed or ever referenced except under the skirmishers and commands section. Skirmishers may retreat up to 3 hexes from enemy infantry units, zones of control, before combat phase begins. Skirmishers may retreat up to 3 hexes from an enemy cavalry unit's zone of control. Why do they italicize enemy? Why would it be friendly? But you roll, and this is the rule that looks identical. I mean, it is identical to step 3 of the melee procedure. Melee procedure, step 1, step 2, step 3. This is basically the same thing. Is it actually? I mean, it looks very, very, very similar. And yet it's not. There's actually little difference. If you go by the roll of 8, 9, 10, and you mistakenly think, well, this says 8, 9, 10 too, so they must be the same rules, they are actually slightly different. So before combat, skirmish units, so it doesn't matter mounted or dismounted, may retreat up to 3 hexes from enemy infantry zones of control. Period. So that says that when facing enemy infantry, skirmishers can always trade ground for firing. But actually, they can still pull back 1 hex and still fire. So actually, they are trading ground, but they're not actually trading ground for fire in all cases. Because there is no if they fire they can't, or if they pull back they can't later fire. They can fire, they just obviously will be at a greater range. And then the next part is, again, in reference to enemy cavalry units, rolling, and whereas during the melee procedure, step 3 again, so cavalry units which have a retreat or stand command and which are about to be attacked by infantry may now retreat 1 to 3 hexes. That makes sense. Although why you need that, I'm not sure why you need that here if cavalry units, which means that they could be once again, you got to be careful. There's cavalry units which have retreat. So that is not including mounted skirmishers, because obviously mounted skirmishers would not ever have a command, and in any case, mounted skirmishers are not cavalry units. Skirmish units, so that would be all skirmish units, being attacked by cavalry units may retreat on die roll of 8, 9, or 10. Okay, so does that mean you can try to retreat before all combat? Maybe you're successful, maybe you're not. Then if you're within range, you're still firing. Then you can try to retreat again here before melee. If you're successful, you're out of there, but you've already fired. If you're not successful, then you're rolling for defending morale, rolling for commitment, Yeah, just keeping all that stuff straight. Before I clearly made the mistake of mixing these two up and thinking that they were the same thing. So I thought that this was the pre-combat attempt at retreat before combat. And again, there's really a retreat before combat, and then there's a retreat before melee. Yeah. extra steps in there than what I was aware of. Okay, not much more to say at this point.